very good morning. It's just past 8 this Friday morning. I'm back again with another edition of Breakfast News. Over the next 60 minutes, this is your one-stop show for all that matters from the world of politics, business, sports and entertainment. I'm Anil Thomas. With me this morning is my co-anchor, Nancy Kohli. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Anil. How are you doing this morning?
Doing perfectly well.
Great, absolutely. So, in fact, yes, like Anil mentioned, we'll be getting you all the updates from across the nation, world sports and business updates, and our focus is also going to be on the final debate taking place between US President Donald Trump and rival Democrat nominee Joe Biden. In fact, just about to get over. It began at 6:30 India time. We'll be getting you all the highlights from that debate and what really were the main talking points. We'll also be analyzing that debate with our guests in this present who will be joining us in a bit from now. And in fact, apart from that, another elections taking place here in the country, and those are of course the Bihar elections. Just a few days left for that. Campaigning is on full swing. We'll get you all the updates, but first a look at the top stories.
Campaigning in full swing in Bihar for the assembly election. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address rallies today in Sasaram, Gaya and Bhagalpur. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav to address their first joint rally in Nevada.
Final Trump-Biden debate ahead of 3rd November US elections. Trump says vaccines is within weeks. Biden responds, anyone responsible for so many COVID deaths should not remain as the president.
Pakistan resorts to more than 3,800 incidents of unprovoked ceasefire violations along the line of control this year. India says Pakistani forces engage in ceasefire violations, often from civilian areas, to support infiltration of terrorists.
India makes rapid strides in the fight against COVID-19. The recovery rate from COVID-19 infection rises further to 89.2%. The mortality rate falls to 1.5%.
Global coronavirus cases nears 4 crore 20 lakh with more than 11 lakh 40,000 deaths. US remains the worst hit with more than 86 lakh cases. France extends curfew as COVID's second wave surges in Europe.
Today is International Snow Leopard Day. The day is observed to create awareness for the preservation of the species, which act as an indicator of the health of the entire ecosystem.
Well, those were the top stories that we'll be tracking over the next 60 minutes. But first up, the big presidential debate, the final. This was supposed to be the third presidential debate, but considering the second one on 15 was cancelled, this is the second and the final presidential debate there. Donald Trump taking on Joe Biden. And we are in that final stages of that particular debate that's on, where 6 topics are being discussed over 90 minutes. We'll get you the latest on that. Let's begin our bulletin with a look at the race for the White House.
US President Donald Trump and the former Vice President Joe Biden fight it out in the final presidential debate today in Nashville, Tennessee. Moderated by Kristen Welker, this debate centered around the major themes of fighting COVID-19, American families, the race in America, climate change, national security and leadership. First round was on fighting COVID-19 pandemic, during which Trump defended his COVID response in the opening exchange and said it saved many lives, while Joe Biden accused Donald Trump of downplaying the risk and not accepting responsibility.
You also said a vaccine will be coming with weeks. Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well, and we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, because this is new information. You have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks, but your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day, and there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead. If we just wore these masks, the President's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the President thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan.
Well, let's now take a look at some of the major highlights from this debate before the polls on the 3rd of November. What exactly happened? There were 6 topics that were debated on here. What happened in those debates? Some of the main points that were discussed, especially in the opening remarks when it comes to fighting COVID-19. How did both the leaders respond? Trump says vaccine to be ready in weeks, says he wants to open the country. Biden stresses on safely opening the country, calls Trump xenophobic. Biden says so many US deaths from coronavirus should disqualify Trump from re-election. The next topic that they fought on, national security. Biden said any country interfering in US elections will pay the price, names Russia, China and Iran. Trump says nobody tougher on Russia than him, accuses Biden family of taking money from foreign sources. Trump also says he has good relations with Kim Jong-un. Biden said that the president has legitimized North Korea. Talking about the third issue, healthcare, Trump went on to say that he would like to terminate Obamacare and come up with a beautiful new plan. Biden said healthcare not a privilege but a right, will pass Obamacare with a public option. Talking about the fourth topic that they discussed about race in America, there is institutionalized racism in America. That's what Biden accused Trump. Trump reverted back saying nobody has done more for the black community than me. The fifth topic that it spoke about on the migrants issue, trying very hard to reunite immigrant children with their parents. And Biden said we'll give a pathway to citizenship to millions of undocumented immigrants within 100 days. They also debated about climate change and the leadership that will be coming forward.
All right, so those were in fact the highlights of that debate, the final debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Let's go across now to our guest joining us virtually, Dr. Sriram Cholia, the foreign affairs expert. He's joining us this morning. Dr. Cholia, good morning. First up, your analysis as far as the topics that were discussed between both Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and how would you really compare it with the first one that took place?
Well, I think it was a more civil and cordial debate, relatively speaking, and there were less interjections. I think the candidates have been coached to behave themselves a little more, because first debate, the public, many people were disgusted by the nasty exchanges and all that. So I think it was, not like a schoolyard brawl. And I think viewers, American voters who are going to choose 230 million plus people, they got a clear sense of positions this time on both domestic and international topics. So, and in fact, this time I was quite happy as a foreign affairs person to see more focus on national security and foreign policy than last time. And the lines were clearly drawn out. And I think Biden had an advantage on the coronavirus issue, clearly because the incumbent is seen to have failed. When Trump somehow tried to defend himself by saying it's a worldwide problem, it's not just in America, and everybody is suffering from it. But I think Biden has an edge on this matter, and even the opinion polls show that on coronavirus topic, Biden has the lead. But on the national security point, I think Trump seemed to be more ferocious because he was repeatedly talking about China and how China is going to eat our lunch. Was eating our lunch until I came. I forced them to pay tariffs to enter our market. Our farmers were getting disturbed. So I think there was a lot on that, and of course there were a lot of personal slurs also about corruption. Both candidates were accusing each other of receiving foreign funding and money. What was most interesting to me was the question about election interference. And on that, Biden said he is going to make China and Russia pay for it, and and Iran pay for it. And on the other hand, Trump was going back to the point that Biden did not do any such tough measure when he was a vice president. So you see, the back and forth was a good dialogue, a strong debate. Really showed that Trump is trying to blunt the disadvantage of incumbency by putting the incumbency factor back on Biden by saying you had 8 years, what did you do on all the issues, on race reform, on national security, on healthcare, on the economy, climate, everything. So what did you do in 8 years? And so in that sense, I think Trump had the better of the exchanges overall, but Biden, objectively speaking, given the state of the economy in the US right now and the pandemic, he does seem to be the favorite right now.
Okay. Sriram, purely looking at that mute button, the fear factor of that mute button there that existed, clearly, made this particular debate a bit more dignified. But having said that, do you feel, from what little we have seen, there's still 1.5 topics that they're still discussing, but from what early part of the debate that we saw, do you feel that Biden came much more prepared? The 3-day in hibernation before he came for this debate, he came much better prepared there on the table, and he had much better solutions to offer as compared to Trump.
And just to add to that, Dr. Chauliya, in fact, I'm reading more opinions here. In fact, Dr. Chauliya, one of the pieces quoting Biden saying it's a good answer that came in from him when he said we had a Republican Congress.
True.
So that was quite sharp and witty, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there was repartee on both sides and blame game was going on. But on the question of preparation, look, I think Biden is simply quite different character from Trump, right? I mean, he represents a kind of higher educated elite establishment, and Trump, always is a populist, and he tries to, in fact, his voting base is non-college educated white people have been the core base for Trump. So Biden was citing New England, medical journal, and he was even mentioning his own daughter and that she's done research and these kind, and he was referring to Anthony Fauci and the scientists. He was trying to take the position that of knowledge and science. But Trump, on the other hand, was going with the pulse of the ordinary masses, which is more based on hearsay and impression. So these are two contrasting, personalities and approaches to all problems. And at one point they were arguing about show me the evidence, and show me how you got so many people out of jail and these kind of things. So I think on these issues, frankly, the debate in the US has become so low in the last several years that it doesn't really matter who has the facts. And then there is all the fake news allegations on both sides. So they were just hurling stuff at each other. And I guess the ones who are really convinced about Trump being, somehow gut based on gut instinct, and that Trump's policies are based on those. I think they will continue to like him for that reason. And the ones who think that we need to bring back some expertise and knowledge and more educated leadership and opinion, they will go for the Biden arguments.
Okay. And there was also the fiery immigration exchange that took place, Dr. Chaulian. In fact, Trump defending policy of separating migrant families at the border. How would you analyze this? How would this really go down well with or not with the Americans?
Yeah, that is a very central issue because, race and immigration have created the big social polarization in the US in the last several years. And Trump, as usual, stuck to his line that, all these illegal people were coming in and we stopped them at the border, and we have been very harsh on preventing illegal entry of aliens and all that. And Biden, on the other hand, took a liberal position that, people should be allowed to at least apply for asylum in the US. And why are we just, violating international law? So Biden was taking the liberal position that, he's talking about character of the US, that it's an immigrant nation and that kind of vision, multicultural vision. Trump was very clear that, we want to keep the bad guys out. And he talked about, these murderers and rapists coming into our country. So he is appealing clearly to that side. And of course, Biden tried to position himself as inclusive. He was trying to always say that, there are no red states or blue states, it's the United States. That's the Obama line, we are a big rainbow nation, all of us should walk together. But Trump is, quite clear that his base is not in favor of this, mixture of races and religions. And he has taken a more, I would say, like a far right position. And it remains to be seen what really appeals to voters, because for the college-educated white people, probably the Biden arguments seem to be more persuasive. And of course, the minorities, they were both playing for the minority cards. So immigration, I think, and race were central questions. And the question, and Biden used the word systemic race.
Sure.
And this goes back to the earlier debate as well, where Trump was saying he hates our country, he thinks that there's a problem in our country. So it's about America is already great according to Trump.
Absolutely.
And Biden is saying there are a lot of problems in America. And people have to decide which message they want to go for.
Sriram, one final word, when you look at this particular debate, this is the final chance that both the candidates get to impress the voters that have not cast their ballot. Having said that, what's the sense that you got when it comes to, who's got the edge? When you purely look at now as the debate closes, who's got the edge, especially in this particular round of debate?
Well, I don't think this debate will particularly move positions one way or the other. Those who have already made up their minds. But one thing is for sure, there is an enthusiasm gap in the Biden campaign. So even though the pollsters are predicting a massive landslide victory for the Democrats, the fact is that Biden has not been visible much and has been doing very low-key campaigning. Even Barack Obama campaigned in a very small, scale for Biden this time because of the virus. So I think Trump has been more visible. He has come out of coronavirus. So you can't be sure about the polls again this time, although the gap is showing nearly 10 percentage points in favor of Biden. Last time Hillary Clinton was only 6 percentage points ahead. So, 4% still suggests that Biden will win, but then, never rule out, because I said gut instinct of the masses may overrule all the science of the, psephology and the election predictions, and everything could again turn out the other way. Let's just wait and watch it.
All right.
Well, let's just wait and watch how this particular election, this particular debate pans out. But as Sriram puts it, an elitist Biden, they're clearly able to make sense with that particular following that he has, and he, as compared to a populist Trump, who was able to drive home the points, especially the points when it comes to immigration and also leadership, where he's trying to put 2-3 points to the people at home.
Absolutely. What we're seeing was, of course, one of the most consequential and bitterly contested, in fact, their debates taking place. First, of course, took place the first round between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and second, of course, had to be scrapped because Donald Trump was not well, fighting COVID-19. And of course, today we're seeing this final debate taking place at Nashville in Tennessee, where of course many important topics were discussed between both the leaders. We'll keep analyzing as to what's really at stake for the Americans and why it matters for India. We'll keep our coverage, we'll keep our focus on the US presidential elections that take place on 3rd November.
Well, still 12 days to go. We'll have to keep our fingers crossed how this particular election goes. But a big breaking story here coming in when it comes to the development of COVID-19 vaccines. Bharat Biotech has got the clearance for phase 3 trials in India. This is a huge boost to the indigenous vaccine plan. Covaxin's third phase trials start in the first week of November.
So, well, clearly this is in fact another big boost, Anil, to India's indigenous vaccine plan. There breaking news clearly coming in as far as development of COVID-19 vaccine is concerned. Bharat Biotech getting clearance for phase 3 trials in India. Well, this is clearly a huge boost, and this trial is going to start from the first week of November. So what it really means is that of course Bharat Biotech getting a clearance for phase 3 trials in India, a huge boost to indigenous vaccine plan. So is India clearly showing the way forward as far as vaccine development across the world is concerned, as the entire world is battling COVID-19 pandemic. Covaxin's third phase trials to start in the first week of November.
Well, the Hyderabad-based vaccine maker had applied for this particular clearance from the DCGI, that's the Drug Controller General of India, on October 2nd, and managing to get the permissions for phase 3 of that COVID-19 vaccine candidate.
Absolutely, we'll keep tracking developments on that front. But moving on now, well, India's cumulative positivity rate is 7.81% and the daily figure is 3.8%. Now, in a series of tweets, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has said that several states and union territories are exhibiting positivity rate higher than the national average, indicating a need for aggressive and widespread testing. It added that as the first step towards timely identification, prompt isolation and effective treatment, higher testing also results in eventually lower positivity rate.
Moving on, Indian Council of Medical Research, the apex body at the forefront of formulating COVID-19 testing strategy in India, has achieved another milestone of conducting 10 crore tests on Thursday. With an average testing of more than 10 lakhs per day in the last 17 days, till now, 74,000 tests per million population have been conducted. India has conducted last 5 crore sample testing in only 45 days. As on 8 September, India had tested 5 crore COVID-19 samples, and in less than 50 days, it has reached 10 crore mark on the 23rd of October. This has been enabled by the rapidly increasing testing infrastructure and capacity across the country. ICMR has been enhancing COVID-19 testing capability across the country by expanding and diversifying testing capacity by leveraging technology and facilitating innovative in affordable diagnostic kits.
And taking a look now at the COVID-19 situation across the worst affected states in the country, Maharashtra continues to remain top on the chart, registering 7,539 deaths. In fact, new cases yesterday. 16,177 patients have been discharged, while 198 patients have died in the past 24 hours. Now, currently, there are around 1,50,011 active cases in the state. And Tamil Nadu continues to make progress in the fight against COVID-19, with the daily positivity rate staying below the 4,000 mark for the 5th day in a row. A total of 3,077 persons tested positive for the virus across the state yesterday. 45 deaths were reported as well, while 4,314 patients were discharged in the past 24 hours. And in the national capital, Delhi, 3,882 new cases of COVID-19 were reported yesterday. 2,727 patients were cured and discharged, while 35 patients died in the past 24 hours. Currently, there are 25,237 active cases in Delhi.
In a significant contribution towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, the country's prestigious technological institute, the IIT Kharagpur, has developed a new technique for testing COVID-19. The COVIRAP diagnostic machine, evolved by the IIT Kharagpur researchers for its efficiency in COVID-19 detection, has been successfully validated by the Indian Council of Medical Research. The innovation has made high quality and accurate COVID testing at a level of RT-PCR testing affordable for the common people, with the testing at around 500 rupees, which can further be reduced through government intervention.
We are dependent on RT-PCR for accurate testing of COVID-19 and whose results take time to come. But like RT-PCR test, accurate tests conducted by COVIRAP produces results within an hour, and that too at an affordable cost of 500 rupees. Yes, as part of Atmanirbhar Bharat, this indigenous COVID-19 testing technique COVIRAP has been developed by IIT Kharagpur researchers, which has been successfully validated by the ICMR. This new testing method implements a highly reliable and accurate molecular diagnostic procedure that can be conducted in an ultra-low-cost portable device until developed by the research team of IIT Kharagpur.
The ICMR was contacted, and on actual samples of human beings, the COVID positive and negative cases were tested for about 200 such cases in ICMR Institute NICET at Kolkata. And on the basis of the various strict protocols followed for this testing, and they found that the accuracy of these results is as close to RT-PCR.
What's special about this affordable, portable and user-friendly testing machine is that with only just machine, the testing of samples of several people can be done together. And there's no need for trained personnel to operate this machine. The test results are rendered via a custom-made mobile application for dissemination without requiring manual interpretation.
The beauty of this machine is such that this is unique of its kind, and it is in the world. In fact, nobody has tried this concept where they are in a position to manufacture this machine in less than 10,000 rupees, and the cost of getting a test of COVID patient, whether positive or negative, will be just around 500 rupees or so. And this machine is portable. It can be taken to any place in villages and in remote areas.
COVIRAP technique is also special as this technique is capable of detecting extremely low levels of viral load. In practice, this means that very early stages of infection can be detected, thereby isolating the patient and arresting the uncontrolled spread of infection in the community via asymptomatic patients. Through COVIRAP, the testing of other diseases like influenza, malaria, dengue, TB and several other diseases can be done apart from COVID-19. Nishan Saurabh's report, TD India.
Well, time now to shift focus and look forward to the election-bound state of Bihar.
Now, campaigning is to further intensify from today in Bihar, with series of public rallies of Prime Minister Modi and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi being scheduled for today. Prime Minister Modi will address rallies in Sasaram, Gaya and Bhagalpur. In a tweet, he said he will put the development agenda of the NDA in front of the people and ask for their blessings for the alliance. While Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and RJD leader Tejaswi Yadav will address their first joint rally in Nawada district of poll-bound Bihar. Besides that, the BSP chief Mayawati will address two election meetings in Rohtas and Kaimur. Meanwhile, yesterday the BJP and JDU had released their manifestos for the state. The BJP promised 19 lakh jobs in the next 5 years and free COVID-19 vaccination, while the JDU also promised to empower youth and women in the state.
Meanwhile, the Income Tax Department on Thursday raided the Congress headquarters in Bihar. A sum of around 8 lakh rupees was found in a car outside their compound at the Sadakat Ashram in Patna. Congress leaders Shakti Singh Gohil and Randeep Surjewala, among others, are being questioned in this particular matter. A notice was served to the Congress headquarters.
Now, India has said that Pakistani forces continue to engage in unprovoked ceasefire violations, many times from civilian areas, to support the infiltration of terrorists across the line of control. Addressing a press conference, the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson said this year, till date, Pakistani forces have carried out more than 3,800 unprovoked ceasefire violations. He added that there have also been attempts to drop arms and ammunition close to the LOC in the garb of civilian activities.
This year till date, Pakistani forces have carried out 3,800 unprovoked ceasefire violations. There have also been attempts to drop arms and ammunition across the LOC in the garb of civilian activities. We have also witnessed that Pakistan's aid and abetment to cross-border terrorism, smuggling of arms and narcotic substances has spilled over to the international boundary, including through usage of drones and quadcopters.
Moving to Mumbai, where a major fire broke out at a mall in Mumbai on Thursday night, but no casualty was reported. The blaze, which has been declared a level 5 fire, erupted in Mumbai's Central City Centre Mall at around 8:53 p.m. Firefighting operation is still underway. Around 3,500 people have been evacuated and moved to a safe place so far. According to the fire brigade officials, the exact cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained.
A 5-member central team is currently touring Telangana to assess the damages occurred due to heavy rains and floods in the state. The 5-member interministerial team is being led by Joint Secretary in the Home Ministry, Praveen Vishesht. The team arrived in Hyderabad yesterday morning. At the outset, the team had a meeting with the top officials of the state government who apprised them of the losses that occurred due to heavy rains and floods in the state last week. A PowerPoint presentation was given to explain the flood damages to the visiting central team. A photo exhibition was also put up to highlight the damages to public and private properties. Now, after the meeting with the state government top officials, the 5-member central team is now divided into 2 groups. One group conducted on-the-spot assessment of the flood damages in Hyderabad, and the other assessed the crop damages at Siddipet district. The central teams will visit the flood-affected areas today as well, and then submit a report on the flood losses after returning to the national capital, Delhi.
Well, on the directions of the central government, Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory government has organized a station camp under the Jan Abhiyan program for displaced Kashmiri migrants, putting up in various parts of Jammu for providing them benefits of various centrally sponsored schemes via registration for the Prime Minister's Ayushman Bharat Yojana, social welfare schemes, old age pension, issuance of domicile certificates, PAN and Aadhaar cards at their doorsteps. The 2-day program evoked huge response from Kashmiri pundits who were all praised for the Prime Minister Narendra Modi for ensuring such a program for the welfare of people at their doorsteps.
And moving on now, well, the air quality has worsened further in the National Capital Region. And as per the Delhi Pollution Control Committee data, the air quality index in Anand Vihar, RK Puram, Rohini and Dwarka is in a very poor category. The air quality index is at 387 in Anand Vihar, 333 in RK Puram, 391 in Rohini and 390 in Dwarka. And let's now move on to our next segment across the globe to take a look at the stories taking place around the world.
Well, our top story in across the globe, 6 days after curfews came into effect in Greater Paris and 8 other metropolitan areas, French Prime Minister Jean Castex announced new measures to stem the spread of coronavirus as cases rise across the country. French Prime Minister said that this is the second wave is here and the situation is grave. In a news conference, he announced the extension of coronavirus curfew measures to 38 more administrative departments throughout France. The new measures are due to come into effect at midnight on Friday. The Prime Minister said the curfew would now impact a total of 46 million people, or 2/3 of the French population, and would include some overseas territories. Curfew measures would remain in place for 6 weeks and the situation would be evaluated next week. France reported 41,622 new cases of COVID-19, taking the total tally there in the country to 9,99,043. The total number of COVID-19 deaths in France stand at 34,210.
Now, Greece will impose a night curfew in the areas most affected by COVID-19, announced the Prime Minister. And he also announced few restrictions on movement in several areas of the country, including Athens. Greece Prime Minister said that movement would be banned from 12:30 at night to 5 early morning in locations deemed high risk and where elevated surveillance is necessary. This is based on a 4-tier risk assessment by the authorities. The measure would be enforced from Saturday. Now, Greece has recorded significantly lower numbers of COVID-19 than other countries in Europe, though cases began to rise in early October. The testing there has also increased.
Footballer Cristiano Ronaldo has tested positive for the novel coronavirus once again and is likely to miss Juventus Champions League clash against Barcelona next week. Ronaldo, who had tested positive for the virus for the first time on October 13th while on international duty with his national team Portugal. He had reportedly tested positive once again despite showing no symptoms. Ronaldo's second positive test means he could be missing the much anticipated clash between Barcelona and his reunion with arch rival Lionel Messi.
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin had personally intervened to ensure that Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny could receive medical treatment in Germany. The opposition politician's ally said he had been poisoned. To this, Putin said if someone in Russia had wanted to poison Navalny, Moscow would not have allowed him to be flown to Berlin for treatment. Navalny, aged 44, fell ill on a flight in Siberia on 20th of August and was airlifted to Berlin for treatment. According to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the blood samples taken from him confirmed the presence of a Novichok nerve agent, and Navalny was discharged from the hospital last month and is recovering now in Germany.
Veteran politician Saad al-Hariri was named the Prime Minister of Lebanon for the 4th time on Thursday. After his nomination, Hariri pledged to form a new government that can tackle the country's worst crisis since its 1975-1990 civil war. He said he would quickly form a cabinet of specialists with a mission to enact the economic and financial reforms set out in a French plan to get foreign aid. But he faces major challenges to navigate Lebanon's sectarian politics to agree a cabinet.
And in more news from around the world, the hopes of ending nearly a month of bloodshed in the mountain enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh looked slim on Thursday as Azeri and ethnic Armenian forces fought new battles on the eves of talks in Washington. The plans for U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to meet the foreign ministers of Azerbaijan and Armenia on Friday raised hopes this week that the two former Soviet republics would agree to end their deadliest fighting since the mid-1990s. Russian President Vladimir Putin said he hoped that the US would help Moscow broker a solution to the conflict. Putin added that he speaks to the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan several times a day on the phone. But he said that those hopes have been dented by the continued heavy fighting in and around Nagorno-Karabakh. Meanwhile, hundreds of people have been killed since fighting flared on 27 September. It has also raised fears of a wider war drawing in Turkey and Russia and increasing concerns about the security of the pipelines in Azerbaijan that carry Azeri gas and oil to the world markets. Russian president also said that nearly 5,000 people had been killed in fighting between Azerbaijan and the ethnic Armenian forces, with more than 2,000 dead on each side.
Well, after a look at all those international stories, it's time now to shift focus to taking a look at what's latest in the newspapers and also getting us the latest on what's on the social media, the stories that are trending. Let's take a look at our web review.
And for the Web News Review, good morning, Amrit. He's joining us this morning for the Web News Review. It's over to you, Amrit, for all the updates on social media and, of course, the e-papers.
Most papers in the morning have led with the news that you've already covered, but what I found interesting, what the Indian Express has led with, it says, Manifesto promise number 1, the BJP injects COVID vaccine in Bihar elections. The BJP, which released its manifesto yesterday for the Bihar Assembly elections, has promised the residents of Bihar free vaccination against COVID-19. This was released by the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in Patna. Yesterday, she said after crossing all stages, there are at least 3 vaccines that have reached the last stage and are on the cusp of production. After this, if scientific people say this vaccine is fine, production can take place. Our production capacity, because of the government's intervention, is very large. This is what she said while releasing the BJP's manifesto. Politics has already started on it. Opposition parties have said that it's appalling that the vaccine is being used to fight the pandemic, and it's being made a whole agenda. Defending the announcement, the BJP has said it's a pledge on public health issue, and that is why they are promising that. Well, the other big story that the Times of India carries, it says the LAC standoff. India rejects China's demand, but the talks are on. The Ministry of External Affairs yesterday said that India and China maintain a stable position in eastern Ladakh, but of course the situation is tense. But the immediate task is to ensure comprehensive disengagement of troops in all friction areas. The two sides have been in high-level talks to resolve the standoff. The Chinese have been asking for de-escalation of armored and artillery units before disengagement. The Indian side had said this is unacceptable to us, and the de-escalation and disengagement should be complete and should be in all sectors and all friction points. So that is the news on the Indo-China confrontation along the LAC in eastern Ladakh. The Hindustan Times carries a news: Mumbai mall fire, 2 firemen injured, 3,500 people evacuated from nearby building. Well, 2 firemen were injured and around 3,500 people were evacuated from a 55-story building in Mumbai early Friday after a fire in a neighboring mall escalated to level 5. This mall is in the Nagpara area of South Mumbai, and fighting operations are still underway. At least 25 fire engines, 16 jumbo tankers, 250 fire brigade personnel are at the spot and are trying to contain the blaze. The Mint has carried RBI revises norm for housing finance. It says house financiers must have at least 60% of their assets in housing finance by 31st March 2024, with individual loans making up at least 50% of all assets. This is what the RBI has said. By March 2022, they must have 50% in housing finance and 40% in individual loans. By March 2023, the ratio should be at least 55% and 45% respectively. This was a review of the regulatory framework for housing finance companies, where the central bank outlined what type of loans can be classified as housing finance. That's what I found interesting in the newspapers. It's back to you, Nancy and Anil.
Thanks very much, Amrit, for joining us and sharing with us the web news review for the day today. Let's move on now to our next segment.
Well, the next segment that we're looking at is health, and let's take a look at the health story. Well, infections are a major health reason to worry, and infectious disease take millions of lives every year. Let's take a look at this report to know the importance of infection prevention for public health and safety.
Infectious diseases are the leading cause of premature deaths worldwide. Infectious diseases are caused by organisms like bacteria, viruses, fungi, or parasites. Many organisms live in and on our bodies, but under certain conditions, some organisms may cause disease. Some infectious diseases can be passed from person to person. Some are transmitted by insect bite. Others can get through by touching the infected surfaces or coming in contact with the infected person. Certain factors increase the risk of infections like poor hygiene, lack of nutrition, weak immunity, conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes, lack of physical activity, close contact with infected person, irrational use of antibiotics, incomplete vaccination, and increasing age.
For fighting infection, 2 or 3 things are very important. Lifestyle measures like nutritious food, keeping your environment safe, and keeping a safe distance from unhealthy people who themselves are suffering or infected. Regular exercise for 20 to 30 minutes every day, and proper inoculation, especially in extremes of ages like children against diphtheria, polio, hepatitis, meningitis, all, and in elderly population more than 60 or 65 persons for pneumonia, influenza, all these things, especially those people who have been suffering from chronic ailments like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, or on prolonged steroid therapy.
Signs vary depending on the organism causing the infection and can cause mild symptoms to severe and life-threatening complications. Infections can be prevented by following hygiene practices and taking precautions.
Let every day be Infection Prevention Day. Preventing infection is in your hands. So wash your hands regularly and strengthen your defense mechanism, your immunity to prevent infections and diseases. Kiran Bhardwaj, PD News.
So take good care of yourself and don't forget to eat a balanced diet and also remain physically active so that of course you are able to fight infections when we are seeing a sort of change in the climate here in the national capital Delhi. Let's now move on, take a look at the history of the day to know the importance of this day in history.
It was on this day in 1923, the 11th Vice President of India, Bharat Singh Shekhawat, was born in Sikar district of Rajasthan. He was a member of Bharatiya Janata Party, served as the Chief Minister of Rajasthan 3 times. On this day in 1937, Indian film and television actor Devendra Verma was born. Verma also acted in a few Marathi and Bhojpuri films. His several films like Chori Mera Kaam, Angur, Chor Ke Ghar Chor are still considered as one of the best comedy movies in Indian cinema. It was on this day in 1915, around 25,000 women marched up to the 5th Avenue in New York City demanding the right to vote for women. On this day in 1956, the International Atomic Energy Agency was created with the purpose of increasing the contribution of atomic energy to the world peace. Its headquarters is in Austria's Vienna. On this day in 2001, Apple released the first iPod capable of storing 1000 songs. The iPod came with a 5 GB hard drive and was fully Mac compatible.
Well, the snow leopard acts as an indicator of the health of the entire ecosystem in which they live due to their position as the top predator in the food web. It has been listed under Appendix 1 of the Convention of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, and in 2002 its status was elevated to requiring concerted action. On 23rd of October, that's today, International Snow Leopard Day is celebrated to create awareness for the preservation of the species.
Living at extreme altitudes in the steep mountains of Himalayas and in a bitterly cold climate, snow leopards are among the most difficult of the world's top predators to study. Himalayas act as a water tower of Indian subcontinent, with all the major rivers of northern India originating from Himalayas. Snow leopard is the apex predator in the Indian Himalayas and is considered as the flagship for conservation of the high altitude landscape. To safeguard the species, International Snow Leopard Day will be celebrated on Friday. A number of factors have contributed to the decline in the snow leopard's population globally. These include a reduction in prey population and increased human population infiltration into the species habitat, owing to the increasing interface between humans and wildlife. Illegal trade of wildlife parts and products and other natural resources is also a key concern in the efforts towards conservation. Potential snow leopard habitat in India is about 130,000 square kilometers, which generally comprises of areas above 3,000 meter altitude. Recent studies indicate that the Indian snow leopard habitat provides ecosystem services worth 4.20 billion US dollar every year to human communities residing in snow leopard landscapes as well as people living in downstream areas. Owing to the importance of this landscape, the government of India has considered snow leopard as the flagship species for the Himalayas. In an act of cooperation for the goal of conservation of the species and its habitat, governments of the snow leopard range countries have joined hands, pledging to secure a better future for the species. Tapush Bhattacharya's report, TD India.
And let's now move on, take a look at the weather for today.
Well, a look at the satellite image, the withdrawal line of the southwest monsoon continues and conditions continue to remain favorable for further withdrawal of the southwest monsoon from remaining parts of Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, some parts of Chhattisgarh, Odisha and North Maharashtra during the next 3 days. Fairly widespread to widespread rainfall with isolated heavy falls very likely over Gangetic West Bengal today and over the northeastern states today and tomorrow. Isolated heavy to very heavy rainfall with extremely heavy falls very likely over Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram and Tripura and South Assam and East Meghalaya today. Fishermen are advised not to venture into the North Bay of Bengal and along the off North Odisha, West Bengal, Bangladesh coast today. Well, time now to take a look at the satellite, at the temperatures in your city and what's in store. Well, it's a Friday morning and we're at the fag end of this edition of Breakfast News. But remember, when you leave work on Friday, there is one thing that you need to remember. You got to leave your work. Don't let technology come in the middle and have a safe and wonderful weekend ahead. Also, we've got a campaign running for you that's called the Mask Up India campaign. There is simple SMS technology that you need to follow. SMS, S stands for sanitization, M stands for mask, and the other S stands for social distancing. You need to follow that, and it makes life pretty easy and simple.
Well, great acronym there, Anil. Well, yes, we would like to urge you to not, in fact, let your guard down and really keep yourself careful and very, in fact, safe in these in this environment when we are battling COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, when the festive season is up ahead for all of us. We urge you to not stop wearing masks. Please do wear your mask and maintain social distancing and follow hand hygiene. With that, it's a wrap on this Breakfast News. We'll see you on Monday now, same time, same place. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. Have a good day and a great weekend ahead.
Take care.
A global pandemic that's causing havoc worldwide. Search for an effective vaccine is on. Until then, the only option is caution and prevention. Now that the country has opened up under Unlock 5, it's all the more critical that we don't let our guard down. Face mask has been found to be the most effective means to fight the spread of COVID-19. World Health Organization and various researchers have also found that masks are critical in mitigating the spread of COVID-19. When you wear a mask, you protect yourself and people around you. Wearing a face mask helps prevent the spread of COVID-19, but only if worn properly.
बिना मास्क या फेस कवर के घर से बाहर निकलने की अभी कल्पना करना भी सही नहीं है.
Be a part of DD India campaign. Mask Up India. Come and join our initiative to fight COVID-19. Share your stories of masking up with us on Facebook and Twitter.
Mask Up India.
It's a simple task. Just wear a mask.
Mask Up India.
Mask Up India.
Mask Up India.